I want to start with a strange idea. Every night, your brain runs two invisible balance sheets. One is about building skills, the other is about clearing emotional debt. Most people never notice either one. They just wake up tired, or anxious, or oddly calm for no obvious reason. But if you understand what those balance sheets are doing, sleep stops being passive. It becomes an asset. This idea comes from neuroscience research on sleep, dreaming, learning, and emotional processing, which we will use only as a starting point here. The structure, pacing, and narrative style follow the passive path framework. Let's talk about what actually happens after you close your eyes. Not in poetic terms, in practical ones, because sleep is not one thing. It is a sequence. Roughly every 90 minutes, your brain moves through a cycle, and across a normal night, those cycles tilt from one mode to another. Early in the night, the brain goes into deep, heavy sleep. Later in the night, it shifts into vivid, dream-rich sleep. These two modes do very different jobs. Think of the first half of the night as construction. Think of the second half as cleanup. During the early hours, your brain focuses on precision. This is when detailed learning happens, motor skills, exact movements, fine control. Anything that depends on repetition and accuracy lives here. Typing faster, learning a new workout movement, practicing piano fingerings, even subtle habits like how you sit, how you breathe, how you react without thinking. This stage strengthens circuits by replaying them slowly and repeatedly. No drama, no emotion, just quiet reinforcement. It is like compounding interest applied to muscle memory. Miss this phase consistently, and progress feels fragile. You practice, but it doesn't stick. Now contrast that with what happens later in the night. The brain shifts into a completely different economy. This is when dreams become vivid, strange, emotional. Here, your brain is not learning new skills. It is renegotiating meaning. During this stage, the chemical signals linked to fear and stress are dialed down, not reduced, removed. Your brain can revisit emotionally charged experiences without triggering full panic. That detail matters more than it sounds, because emotional pain is not stored the same way as factual memory. You don't suffer because you remember what happened. You suffer because your body reacts as if it is still happening. Late-night dreaming weakens that reaction. It does not erase the memory. It softens the charge. This is emotional amortization. The same way a long loan feels manageable when payments are spread out, emotional weight becomes tolerable when processed repeatedly without panic. This is why people who miss late-night sleep often feel raw. Small problems feel enormous. Minor setbacks feel personal. Everything seems heavier than it should. The cleanup never happened. Now here is where this becomes relevant to money, work, and life trajectory. Most burnout is not caused by effort. It is caused by emotional debt accumulation. You can push hard for a while and still feel okay, until one night becomes two, then three, then a habit. At that point, you are no longer clearing emotional charges. Your brain starts linking unrelated events together. A bad email reminds you of a bad year. A slow week feels like failure. One mistake feels like proof. This is not weakness, it is biology. When the brain cannot decouple emotion from memory, everything connects to everything. That is why chronic sleep disruption leads to catastrophizing. And here is the uncomfortable part. Most high-performing people unknowingly protect the wrong half of sleep. They guard early sleep fiercely. They go to bed exhausted. They collapse. They get their deep sleep. Then they wake up early and stop. Emails, markets, flights, obligations. What they sacrifice is the emotional cleanup phase. Over time, they still perform, but they lose resilience. They become brittle. Now let's talk about a myth that quietly destroys progress. The idea that more sleep is always better. Consistency matters more than quantity. A regular 6 hours can outperform an irregular 8. Why? Because the brain adapts to rhythm. When sleep length swings wildly, the cycles lose alignment. Deep sleep and dream sleep drift. It is like depositing money into random accounts without tracking balances. Some nights you overpay, some nights you miss the payment entirely. The brain prefers predictability. This does not mean short sleep is ideal. It means stable sleep is powerful. Now let's connect this to learning, career growth, and decision-making. Deep sleep builds competence. Dream sleep builds judgment. One without the other creates imbalance. People with strong skills but weak emotional processing often succeed early. then stall. They know what to do. They cannot regulate how it feels when things go wrong. People with emotional insight but weak skill consolidation often feel reflective but struggle to execute. They understand meaning but lack traction. The rare advantage is having both. That advantage is built at night. This also explains something many people experience but rarely connect. Why creativity often spikes after good sleep. During dream-rich sleep, the brain tests associations. It asks quiet questions. Does this belong with that? Does this pattern still matter? Can this rule be relaxed? It trims unnecessary connections and strengthens useful ones. This is why insights often arrive in the morning, not because sleep creates ideas, but because it removes noise. Now let's talk briefly about dreams themselves. Most people either ignore them or overinterpret them. Dreams are not messages, they are simulations. They replay emotional scenarios without emotional cost. When dreams involve other people's intentions, fears, or reactions, that usually signals late-night dreaming. Your brain is practicing social meaning. When dreams feel mechanical or movement-based, that usually belongs to deeper sleep. Your brain is practicing execution. You do not need to decode dreams. You only need to respect what enables them. Which brings us to disruption. Alcohol and certain substances fragment sleep cycles. They create the illusion of rest while blocking cleanup. You fall asleep faster, but the accounting never finishes. Caffeine late in the day pushes sleep later, which compresses dream-rich hours. Excess fluids wake the brain repeatedly, which interrupts emotional processing. None of this is moral, it is mechanical, and mechanics can be adjusted. The most powerful lever is not supplements, not gadgets, it is timing. Going to sleep at roughly the same time, waking at roughly the same time, even on imperfect nights. This anchors cycles. Resistance training helps deepen early sleep, which improves skill consolidation. Calm wake-ups protect late sleep, which improves emotional stability. This is not about optimization. It is about alignment. When people talk about discipline, they usually mean effort. Real discipline is rhythm, and rhythm compounds quietly. If this sounds abstract, consider this. Imagine two investors, both work equally hard, both face similar stress. One clears emotional debt nightly, the other carries it forward. After a year, their skill level may look similar. Their judgment will not. One reacts, the other responds. One sees threats everywhere, the other sees patterns. That gap widens over time, not because of intelligence, but because of sleep architecture. This is why sleep is not rest. It is maintenance, and maintenance is what keeps systems from breaking under load. In the next part, we will explore how emotional unlearning during sleep mirrors real-world therapy techniques and why your brain already performs a form of self-guided repair every night when conditions allow. We will also talk about why missing this process does not just make you tired. It changes who you become under pressure. There is a reason therapy works best when emotions are felt without being overwhelming. That condition is rare during the day, but it happens every night naturally, when sleep is intact. Late-night dreaming creates a peculiar state. Your mind revisits emotionally charged events, but your body does not fully react. Heart rate stays low, stress chemicals stay muted, muscles remain still. This separation is not accidental. It is the brain's way of revisiting difficult material without reinforcing fear. During waking life, strong emotion strengthens memory. That is useful for survival, but destructive for recovery. During dream sleep, memory replays without reinforcement. The memory stays. The emotional spike fades. This is the same logic behind certain clinical therapies. Eye movement therapies use lateral eye motion while recalling traumatic experiences. The movement suppresses fear centers. The memory is accessed without panic. The result is not forgetting. It is emotional decoupling. Chemical therapies work similarly. They block the brain's ability to bind fear to memory during recall. Different tools, same objective. Sleep does this for free, every night, unless something interrupts it. When dream sleep is shortened or fragmented, emotional learning becomes sticky. Events feel unresolved. Thoughts loop. Reactions sharpen. This is not because something new went wrong. It is because something old never finished processing. This explains a common pattern. People say they are not stressed, but they are irritable. They say nothing big is wrong, but everything feels heavy. They are not accumulating new problems. They are carrying old ones forward. This is emotional debt, and it compounds quietly. Sleep deprivation does not just reduce energy, it narrows perspective. The brain begins linking unrelated experiences together. A missed message feels like rejection. A small loss feels permanent. A delay feels like danger, not because reality changed, because filtering failed. Dream sleep trims meaning. Without it, meaning spreads. Everything connects to everything. This is why chronic sleep disruption often looks like anxiety or depression from the inside, not sadness, not panic, but amplification. Now consider how this plays out in decision-making. Good decisions depend on separating signal from noise. When emotional residue accumulates, noise dominates. People overreact to short-term fluctuations. They abandon long-term plans. They seek certainty instead of direction. This is visible in markets. Traders sleep poorly. Volatility feels personal. Small losses trigger large exits. It is not lack of knowledge, it is lack of emotional recalibration. The brain never got a chance to soften yesterday's charge. Sleep is not about making you smarter, it is about making you proportionate. Now let's address a subtle misunderstanding. Dreaming is not random, it is structured chaos. The brain replays spatial paths, social interactions, unresolved conversations. Not literally, symbolically. It compresses experience into simplified narratives. This is why dreams feel strange but familiar. They are abstractions. They strip away detail and test meaning. Does this matter? Does this connect? Does this belong? This process improves intuition. Not intuition as magic. Intuition as compressed experience. People with intact dream sleep often say they have a gut sense about things. That gut sense is pattern recognition without emotional overload. When dream sleep is disrupted, intuition weakens. People become reactive thinkers. They need more data, more reassurance, more time, because the background sorting never happened. This also explains why creativity declines under poor sleep. Creativity requires flexible associations. Rigid emotional links block flexibility. If everything feels urgent, nothing can be playful. Dream sleep reintroduces play, not in behavior, in thought. Now let's talk about consistency again. The brain does not need perfection. It needs predictability. When sleep timing varies wildly, the brain cannot anticipate when to process what. Deep sleep drifts, dream sleep compresses or disappears. The internal schedule collapses. This is worse than slightly shorter sleep. A consistent 6 hours often preserves structure. An inconsistent 8 hours often destroys it. This does not mean less sleep is better. It means stable sleep protects architecture. This insight removes pressure. You stop chasing an ideal number. You start protecting rhythm. Now let's address a question many people quietly have. Why do some people wake up early and feel fine, while others feel destroyed? It is not willpower. It is cycle alignment. Waking at the end of a sleep cycle feels clean. Waking in the middle feels brutal. 90-minute blocks matter. Ending sleep at 6 hours can feel better than 7. Ending at 7.5 can feel better than 8. This is not optimization. It is timing. When people wake mid-cycle, emotional residue leaks into waking life. Grogginess is not just fatigue. It is incomplete processing. Now let's talk about substances briefly. Alcohol sedates but fragments sleep. It steals dream time. Cannabis can deepen early sleep but suppress dreaming. Some supplements promote falling asleep but disrupt sequencing. None of this makes someone bad or weak. It simply shifts what kind of sleep is possible. The trade-off is emotional cleanup. Occasionally missing it is fine. Chronically missing it changes temperament. This is why some people feel emotionally numb after long-term suppression. The brain stops revisiting emotional material. It avoids it entirely. That may feel stable, but it reduces depth. Now let's return to the idea of self-induced therapy. Every night, the brain asks two questions. What should be reinforced? What should be softened? The first happens early. The second happens late. Skip the first, skills erode. Skip the second, emotions harden. Most modern schedules attack the second. Early alarms, late screens, irregular hours. People unknowingly choose productivity over resilience. In the short term, this works. In the long term, it creates fragility. This is why rest is not laziness. It is infrastructure. You do not notice infrastructure when it works. You notice collapse when it fails. In the final part, we will bring this together. How to protect sleep without obsession. How to use rhythm instead of force. And why treating sleep as an asset quietly compounds across years, not days. The final part follows. Sleep becomes powerful when it stops being treated as a reward. Most people treat sleep like dessert. Something earned after effort. Something sacrificed when things get busy. That framing is backward. Sleep is maintenance, and maintenance determines how long a system can operate under load. The goal is not perfect sleep. The goal is protected structure. Structure means rhythm, going to bed and waking up at roughly the same times even when conditions are not ideal, letting the brain anticipate when to build and when to clear. This alone solves more problems than most supplements ever will. The second principle is separation. Daytime is for accumulation, nighttime is for processing. When those bleed into each other, neither works well. Late night stimulation delays emotional cleanup. Early morning urgency cuts it short. The brain ends up half processing everything. The result is a constant sense of being behind. Now consider effort. Hard training increases the need for deep sleep. Heavy emotional days increase the need for dream sleep. Ignoring either creates imbalance. Physical exhaustion without deep sleep feels brittle. Emotional stress without dream sleep feels overwhelming. Matching effort with recovery is not softness, it is sustainability. Another principle is acceptance. Some nights will be short, some nights will be fragmented. The mistake is panic. Sleep anxiety disrupts sleep more than lost hours ever will. Consistency recovers faster than compensation. Missing one night is not failure. Chasing it with extremes often is. The brain prefers calm correction, not force. Now let's zoom out. Over years, sleep quality shapes temperament, not mood, temperament. How fast you react, how long frustration lingers, how much uncertainty you tolerate. These traits influence career paths, relationships, and risk tolerance. They are rarely attributed to sleep, but they are quietly built there. This is why two equally capable people diverge. One becomes sharp under pressure, the other becomes rigid. One recovers quickly, the other carries residue. The difference is not grit, it is nightly recalibration. Sleep is where emotion is resized. Without it, everything feels equally large. With it, proportion returns. That proportion is what allows patience. Patience allows strategy. Strategy allows compounding. This is the quiet loop. Sleep protects judgment. Judgment protects decisions. Decisions shape outcomes. This is the passive path. Not dramatic changes, not hacks, but small, repeatable alignment. The kind that works even when life is noisy. The kind that compounds invisibly. When sleep is treated as infrastructure, not indulgence, everything downstream stabilizes. That is the real return. Sleep is not about rest. It is about maintenance. It is where skills are reinforced. It is where emotional weight is reduced. It is where judgment gets recalibrated. When sleep is protected, decisions feel clearer, reactions feel smaller, progress feels steadier. Nothing dramatic changes overnight, but everything compounds quietly. If this helped you see sleep differently, press like, subscribe to stay on the passive path. Leave a comment with your thoughts or experience. And if you know someone who has been carrying too much lately, share this video with them. Good luck. Feel free to watch other videos on the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.